Hi YouTube, hi VC, it's Rob here with another video, and it's about time I did my favourite albums of 2021. So, has 2021 been a classic year? I'd have to say no. I've seen plenty of people showing mountains of records, whereas I've really struggled this year to find 10 records to show. I've actually only got 9. A lot of my favourite artists like Paul Weller, Elbow, Public Service Broadcasting have released albums, and you think I'd be surefire records to reach my top 10, but I've not even bought the albums. So maybe I'm being a little bit more selective. There's been a few albums, Floating Points album, I was pretty close to picking up, and maybe I will do in the new year. And there's a King Gizzard album that I'd like to pick up, but I've got 9 to show you. Better get cracking. Number 9 is TV Priest. So this album's called Uppers. This came out in January. Start of the year is pretty strong. Picked up quite a few albums. So TV Priest performed the second concert, and after that they signed for Sub Pop, and they recorded this album pretty quick. And I suppose you'd describe this as post-punk. There's been quite a few sort of post-punk albums this year that have made my top 9. So think Idols, Fountains DC. Quite political, this album. Got something to say for itself. And yeah, very entertaining album. Made me laugh at times. Very strong album. My number 9 is Uppers by TV Priest. Coming in at number 8 is Seeking New Gods, which is by Griff Rhys from the Super Furry Animals. So when I picked this album up, I gave it a lot of plays. I really enjoyed it. I think sort of the compliment you could play this album is you could mix it in with your favourite Super Furry Animal tracks, and you won't be able to tell the difference really. Every time I play it, I really enjoy it. So my number 8 is Seeking New Gods by Griff Rhys. Number 7 is The Villages and Fever Dreams. So this is the 5th album by Villagers, who are from Dublin. I've not actually shown this on my channel before. I saw Villagers in 2011 supporting Elbow, and I did pick up a couple of the CDs, but this is my first vinyl album that I picked up. I streamed it a lot when I picked it before I picked it up. To me, it's got quite a sort of Tame Impala feel to it. It's the sort of album sort of suited to the summer. I mean, this sort of video is sort of celebrating the art of listening to an album, sitting down and listening to an album front to back. You know, these days where a lot of people just sort of pick tracks on Spotify and they've not sort of got the patience to listen to a full album, but you just cannot beat sitting down listening to a complete album. And this is a really nice listen. It's my number 7, certainly didn't disappoint. The Villagers and Fever Dream. One of my favourite bands over the last couple of years have been the Parcels, and they released their second album a couple of months ago, Night and Day. So it actually comes as 2 separate albums, but it actually comes as one album. So you've got Day and you've got Night. So if you let's talk about the Parcels. They're a band that I don't really get shown on the VC. They're from Australia, New South Wales, but they're based in Berlin, and they released a debut album in 2018, and that's got a very sort of Daft Punk, sort of lazy disco feel to it. It's an outstanding album. But this is only their second studio album. And they're great musicians. There's 5 guys. They've got a sort of look of the 70s, the hairstyles, but To me, they were a bit like Pink Floyd as a sort of disco outfit. Now that'll probably turn a lot of people off, but they've got a lot of confidence on stage and they know what they're doing, and the sound they produce is just second to none. I really recommend checking out the Parcels. This is a very strong album and you get two for the price of one. So Night and Day, my number 6 by the Parcels. Number 5 is an album that it's not very cool, I suppose, to like this album. Not seen anybody on YouTube showing it. It's S.G. Lewis and Times. So again, this came out at the beginning of the year. So who's S.G. Lewis? He's a producer, kind of a DJ, a mixer. He's worked with Dua Lipa. He's on the Elton John Lockdown album. But this is just a good, feel-good record. It's the most played record on my Apple Music. Back to one more featuring Now Rodgers. Give that track a listen. That's my number 1 track on Apple Music this year. But the whole album, it's just like a Friday night when you were going out on the pull. Maybe you wouldn't have a successful night, but if you did, this would be the soundtrack to it. So yeah, my number 5 is S.G. Lewis and Times. My number 4 is an album that the critics have loved. It's a bit of a Marmite album. It's Black Country New Road, and this album for the first time. So this is a debut album by 4 guys, 3 girls from London. Been so much hype about this album. There's only 6 tracks on it. It doesn't sort of follow a conventional sort of theme. A lot of people will probably say that guy can't sing, and you know, on a bad day I'd agree with you. There's something about the atmosphere on the album. It's got a sort of jazz tinge to it. Again, you call it avant-garde, but then you call it post-punk. It's challenging. The singer's, I think it's Isaac Wood. But they've got a new album already in the can. It's coming out, I think, on the 4th of February. I'll be picking it up. This is not the sort of album you play first thing in the morning, but I don't think you play it last thing at night because you certainly won't get to sleep. It's not lullaby music, but it's got attitude, and it's a very strong album. It's my number 4, Black Country New Road, and for the first time. Coming in at number 3 is Jane Weaver and Flock. So a few people have said they can't get into this album, but I love it. It was pretty close to being my number 1. A little bit of a slow burner, but don't you find that your favourite albums, they are slow burners. They're not instant. They take a little bit of time. And again, that's the sort of beauty of listening to an album, sort of sinking yourself into it. And that's what I did with this album. Heart Low is the opening track, and that's got a pretty sort of commercial feel to it. But this is quite commercial sounding. You know, if you don't know much about Jane Weaver, I'd certainly recommend you stream this and give it a listen. I mean, she's certainly got me under her spell. There she is with the bird boxes. Her kids actually work at one of my local record shops, Herbie and I think it's Scarlett. And this is a copy that Jane actually has touched. She brought it into the record shop for me. So yeah, my number 3, great album, Flock by Jane Weaver. Coming in at number 2 is As the Love Continues by Mogwai. So Mogwai from Glasgow. I think this is classed as their 10th studio album, but they've done a number of soundtracks. And Mogwai are the kind of band who, once you sort of get into them, they've got plenty of albums to sort of delve into. The catalogue's vast. This album is mainly instrumental, but there is vocals. Dry Fantasy is a great song. This has been a slow burner. I'd streamed it a lot, but I didn't actually pick it up until a couple of months ago. But again, it took sort of a new lease of life. Playing it on the, playing the actual record made me sort of appreciate it even more. So yeah, my number 2 is Mogwai and As the Love Continues. But number 1, it was always going to be Squid and Bright Green Fields. So this album came out about 6 months ago. So I've been talking about Squid on my channel for over 12 months. They've released a number of EPs. When this came out, there's no other tracks from the EPs on it. And it's pretty challenging. Again, the actual drummer of the band is a singer. And when you go to see them live, I thought it was funny because I went to see them with my son and it was pretty packed. And I said to my son, is it going to be rowdy? And he said, oh no, people will just be enjoying the music. As soon as he started, the maddest mosh pit you've ever seen was right at the side of me. And my son jumped in there a couple of times. They are pretty wild live. And originally they're from Bristol, but they met up at Brighton University. And this album, I think because of lockdown, maybe they took more time on it. It's very experimental in places, but again, you go on a journey with it. When I first listened to this though, I got it straight away. Tracks like The Narrator, Boy Racers, The Flyover. If you don't know anything about Squid, I do recommend you checking this album out. Bright Green Fields, my number 1 album from 2021. So thanks for watching my video. 2021, has it been a classic year? Like I say, I've struggled. I've not even been able to get 10 albums, but I hope you enjoyed what I showed. And I hope if you don't know some of the albums, you stream them. And that's the beauty now. You can sort of stream an album and get an opinion on it pretty quickly. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you. I will always get back to you. Thanks for watching my video and bye for now.